state is sort of, completely what it is. But our state has been built through our struggles. Anything that we've asked for is come because we've asked for it. Nothing has been given to us. So how can we treat our state in the way our government treats the welfare state of Europe? Really, I think a lot of curricular changes are required. We have to rethink what it means to be thinking about state, civil liberties, and their caste should become a very central concept for us. Because there's a certain gradualism in the way anti-caste movements have asked for reform. And that gradualism becomes negative only if we think revolution is the only measure of good lawmaking. But revolutionary laws were so violent, as we all know, from the Soviet Union to China to Pol Pot's regime, violent and turned against the citizens of that same country, right? So this whole thing about gradualism should be rethought. I mean, if you're seriously, we have to make a case for revolution, and this is a good PhD thesis for anybody, what have been the long-term effects of reservation in this country? Incremental achievements of the reservation policy. And that would really open up a revolutionary answer to us, I think. If you have a cohort of young Bahujan, Dalit and Adivasi thinkers today, where does it come from? It has not come through any revolutionary transformation of power. There's some dogged work on the ground, pushing it here, pushing it there, some tinkering, some fighting, but over the generations, no? And we are stuck with this model of revolution that breaks with something, builds something. And Balagopal says, what does it actually tell us about our society? It doesn't tell us anything. So I think some of the civil liberties we have been able to anchor in some meaningful way through the sort of what is called gradualist work. I think it needs another look. How do we understand that? And that way you also understand why Ambedkar never despaired. He may have been unhappy, but he never despaired. He may have been angry, but he never sort of gave up on any of these things, though he had doubts about everything. Like Balagopal, he would have also said, what's my choice? So I end on that note.
Thanks to Geetha for a really, I think, I don't know how to describe it, a talk which is so wide-ranging. And as she put it, we're thinking of Balagopal annotating Ambedkar. And the way she went from Balagopal to Ambedkar, Ambedkar back to Balagopal is, I think, absolutely fascinating. And I think the couple of points which I took up, which I will just quickly state and then we can open it out for comments, thoughts to Geetha. Is the
Stand for it if you like.
please, please. Is the
No, just want to stand and go down.
is the question that she raised?
Can you talk?
Yeah, the question she raised about thinking of Ambedkar as the first thinker on human rights. Again, such an important point if you think about it, right? I mean, any history of human rights in this country, I mean, firstly, there are no histories of human rights in this country, but if there are histories, we go back to, as you rightly indicated, the question of state violence. But then the point that she is making is we've never taken seriously that particular language, right? Confiscation of the human personality. What is confiscation of the human personality? What is the word dignity? Where did it come from? And again, Ambedkar's contribution to that. So it's a very powerful kind of a invocation. Just think of Ambedkar as the first thinker of human rights in this country. And again, when Balagopal goes back to the point again and again on why we need to think of the question of human rights from the perspective of caste. You get a sense of a rooting in the Indian context, again, which Geetha referenced, which otherwise you don't have in the broad thinking on human rights. Because if you go to, I mean, most law schools, you will see your teaching will be the UD, HR, ICC, PR, and etc., etc. But you don't really have a sense of this really important history which we must engage with. Again, the learning you have through this talk, I think will be more than you can learn in most classes in human rights. Right? And so that's the important, thank you again for bringing in Ambedkar and Balagopal's interpretation of Ambedkar, such a powerful way. And the other great thematic she brought in is the idea of love, right? And the idea that, we're all committed. Again, the point which was here, which is so powerful, is saying, end of the day, Ambedkar came from the idea of what can you do with the framework that we have to make the lives of people better. Balagopal, with respect to human rights, comes from the same framework. What can we do to make the lives of people better? And that's your commitment to the law, to the constitution, etc. But at the same time, as she indicated, there's a understanding of the limitations of that framework. And limitations are explored through the question of the language of love. Can you separate electorates? All very good. But if you don't have love, how will that transform the world the world that you have? How do you take forward the question of these notions like again she beautifully referenced the idea of public conscience, right? Public conscience in that talk which Ambedkar has, where he talks about conditions precedent for the working of a constitution. He says one of the conditions is what he calls a public conscience. Public conscience is when you're moved by the suffering of the man as your own suffering and you want to do something about it. And what prevents that is the question of caste, right? So again, it's a fundamental substratum for the idea of a democracy. That's what Ambedkar is saying, and I think that's what balagopal is referencing as well. So the many, I think the way, again, the language you use richly annotated, right? I mean, each of these texts, again, the invocation you have is go back to that text, the letter to Thakkar, very, very important. Go back to the Southborough Commission and the Attlee and the Ambedkar kind of a conversation. Go back to the end point of the annihilation of caste. So range of references there which we can all take back, and we're all deeply the richer for this really fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Pradeep. And just to, I think I really wanted to just mainly open the floor out, but now I'll open the floor out.